Tim, can you hear me?
I can. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, I am getting people checked in. Once
Okay.
it starts, you will see council chambers pop up and then you'll be live.
Okay, thank you.
So you're welcome. So I'll be muted for a little bit.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Hey Tim, can you hear okay? I can't hear you, so your microphone's not on.
I'm there.
There we go.
Ready? Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Chief of Police Recruitment Town Hall. As noticed on the Gerhardt City blog, today's town hall is for citizen input regarding what you might like in a new police chief. The attributes of a police chief are the only topic for visitor input today. If you have other concerns, this is not the venue. Tomorrow's city council meeting, you may sign up to speak during the visitor section. You may choose to Zoom the meeting, and if you do, you must sign before 4 p.m. And if attending in person, you may sign up when you arrive. You must sign up before the movie. It is a movie. The meeting begins. I'd like to thank the city staff and councilors attending for helping with this town hall. I would also like to thank Tom Troxel of GMP for our recruiting firm for taking the time to be here today. Again, if you need to leave because this is the wrong venue, please do so at this time. We are already at 60 minutes. I take that back. We're already at 72 minutes of people having a chance to speak. The subject today is what you want in a new police chief. Chad, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I just got a brief statement to kind of help categorize this. It says, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the town hall meeting. This has been a long time coming. Today we gather as a community to discuss the important topic that affects us all, hiring of the police chief. As you all know, our former police chief is retiring, and we now have the opportunity to select a new leader for our police department. This decision will have a significant impact on the community, as the police chief plays a crucial role in ensuring the safety and security of our neighborhood. Therefore, it's important that we come together to share our thoughts and concerns about what qualities we would like to see in our next police chief. We hope that this town hall meeting will be a productive and informative discussion that will help guide the council to the selection of a new police chief that reflects our community's and needs. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to your participation. The purpose of this town hall meeting is to discuss the hiring of the police chief and the community. The goal of the discussion is to gather input and feedback from community members about the qualities, skills, and experiences they believe are essential for a new police chief to possess. By doing so, we hope to identify the most important characteristics and qualifications that our community is looking for in our next police chief, and ensure that the hiring process reflects our community's values and priorities. The meeting will provide information on the hiring process and timeline. Ultimately, the goal of this town hall meeting is to ensure that the hiring of our next police chief is transparent, inclusive, and reflects the needs and values of our community. We hope that by engaging in a productive and informative discussion, we can help guide the selection of a new police chief who is committed to serving and protecting our community. As we come together to discuss the hiring, it is important to remember that this is an opportunity for us to share our thoughts and concerns in a respectful and productive manner. We must approach this discussion with an open mind, recognizing that each person may have a different perspective and opinions on what qualities are important for our next police chief to possess. We must also remember that this is a sensitive topic that may invoke strong emotions and differing viewpoints. However, it's important to keep the discussion civil and respectful and refrain from personal attacks or disrespectful behavior towards others. We should listen to each other's opinions and viewpoints with an open mind and respond in a manner that is constructive and respectful. It is our hope that this town hall meeting will provide a platform for meaningful and productive discussion that will help guide the selection of our police chief. By engaging in a respectful and constructive dialogue, we can work towards the decision that reflects the values and priorities. Thank you for joining us today, and let us approach this discussion with mutual respect and commitment to finding the best possible candidate for our community. We have the agenda. We were handing those out at the beginning. We also have comment cards, and the reason for the comment cards is just for us to better organize this process and to make sure that we're keeping track of the comments and the ideas. So if you have a comment card and you would like to speak today, let's go ahead and hand those up to this part of the desk, and I'll get those to the mayor and he will be able to call on them. So if you still have those, please let us know. Thank you. So we do have Tim Troxel here, GMP, and he's next on the agenda to kind of give us an update on the process and where we're at. Tim, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. City Administrator, Mr. Mayor, and council members, as well as a great outpouring of public support today for this meeting. This is kind of a surprise to me. I didn't think we'd see that many folks out today. I guess you had some good winter weather like we have here in the Willamette Valley. So thanks for being here. Again, my name is Tim Troxel. I'm the lead consultant on this police chief search for the city of Gearhart. And I want to give you a little bit of a background and an update on where we are on the process so far. The president of our company, Greg Prothman, and I met with Chad, your city administrator, a couple of months ago and started to lay the groundwork for this search. It included coming up with a tentative timeline on the things we would do ourselves as a search firm, as well as information we could gather from the city on the current position of police chief. And so we are on schedule with that timeline. This is great. We are putting together what is called a position profile for advertising for your police chief. And what happens with the position profile, besides the usual state law definitions of what a police chief is and the different responsibilities and roles that that person may have, I've also met by phone with all of your counselors, the mayor and the 4 counselors, and taken copious notes about what their wishes are for the traits of the next police chief for Gearhart. And so today, with all of you in attendance and with the comment cards handed out, we're hoping to get even more yet to add information to this position profile for the police chief. I know we are close on our draft of that position profile. It's basically a full color flyer advertising brochure specifically built for Gearhart, which will go out in hard copy to the 3 western states, West Coast states, Washington, Oregon, California, and a few others, as well as on our GMP website all over the United States. So just about anybody can apply if they meet the minimum requirements and fill into some of those traits we all are looking for. By the end of this week, we hope to have that flyer, at least from our perspective at GMP, finished and ready for review by your city staff and council. Move forward with posting that information on the internet, mailing out flyers, and then the good part, receiving applications. That application process will be open from roughly till the first week of April. And then we will do what we call a first review, where we pare down the list and pick the cream of the crop, if you will. And so that's where we are so far on the timeline and the schedule. I think things are going well. And then the goal with our timeline is to have a new chief appointed by about May 15th, if everything stays on schedule. Mr. City Administrator, is there other information you'd like me to share or delve into more here?
No, Tim, I think at this point, I think we're pretty good. Just if you can hang on and be available just in case we need you.
Yes, I'm gonna stick around and take a lot of notes here too, and I appreciate that. It sounds like there's going to be some written comments as well, which I'd love to help incorporate into this profile for the police chief. That's great.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, so the next few items on the agenda will be a public comment section. And again, if you haven't turned yours in, does anybody need a comment card to fill out right at the moment, or a pen? Okay, and so the attendees wishing to speak will do so when called up, and we have 3 minutes set aside for that to start. Then we have city councilor comments afterwards, and then a closing recap with Councilor Dana. Any questions, council? At all? Okay, so the next section is the comment section, and the mayor does have a few comment cards with him, and so Mayor, I'll let you go ahead and start the process.
Okay, well, the first person I'm calling on is Penny Sable.
Penny, you can stand up there, I think, if you don't mind.
We don't have a podium.
Penny Sable, 1149 North Cottage, and I veered off a bit. I'm very concerned about the crime coming into this area. I think we all know what's been happening in the last few days.
Penny, we want to know about what you want in a chief of police, okay?
Right, so I'm sorry, I did put that on there, and that was my main concern. My main concern now is that we get a full-time, I think we need a full-time force in this town, because crime is coming in. So that's what I think. And I'll be, tomorrow I'll go through the rest of it.
Thank you. Okay, so next person on the shuffle is Sarah Nebaker.
Hi. So I lived in Gearhart for over 50 years, 750 G Street. And I've seen different police chiefs. What I'm hoping for is someone who has compassion for the residents and is able to oversee his staff so that they too have compassion and understanding for the residents. And I would like to see someone who is extremely capable, very well trained, someone who has a background in criminal justice, someone who is educated and has an understanding of contemporary issues that we have in our country today with police and civilians and how they intersect. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, Pat Roberts.
Trisha Roberts, 366 North Ocean Avenue. I think everything Sarah said is the same. I think that the police chief, in addition to the training, should have a broad background so that he can have a way to communicate with all of the residents. The residents in this town probably are a little more highly educated, a little bit more traveled than you would expect in a town this size, when we're not quite as rural as we're here. And I think that it's important to understand that there has to be a respect, not only for the officer, but the officer has to respect the individuals. My other big thing is, I'm just asking, have you considered combining the police force with Seaside and having the full time on the weekends, at night, that we know we're gonna get an officer if we call 911?
Thank you, Pat. It's really, you know, we've been down one officer for a long time, and we're looking. It's just, if you look at some of the applications, it's just not happening.
Well, and that's why I'm hoping that this group will be flexible enough to realize that maybe it's time to start reaching out and bringing neighbors in. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next person on the list. I guess. Jane Gable.
Thank you, Carrie. I really have to agree with Sarah and Pat. We need an officer that is well educated, that's well trained, that has compassion for the wide variety of people we have living in Gerhart. The selective bullying that Jeff is infamous for has got to stop with the new officer. And we also need to start looking at teaming up with Seaside. There's nothing
Okay.
wrong with that.
All right, thank you. And it says you got an attachment. Are you going to drop that off?
I might.
Okay. All right. Well, this is going a lot faster than I thought. Susan Edie.
Susan Edie, 707 F Street. The qualities I am most looking for in a new police chief are an individual who strives to keep Gerhart safe and protected. Someone who will work to blend the qualities of our unique small town with an understanding of the complexities of the world in which we live today. A chief who understands that he or she works for the city council and the community. Regular enforcement of the speed limit within town and on the highway. Lastly, a patient person who enjoys the small town vibe, who is interested in being a part of it, and who does not mind the rain.
Okay, next on the list is Dee Dee Michelle.
A great turnout, so glad everyone's here. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor, the city council, and the city of Gerhart for offering the opportunity to speak about this issue. It speaks well of our community that we can come together and look for solutions to our challenges. I'd also like to thank Chief Bowman for his service to our community and wish him well on this next life chapter. What am I looking for in a police chief? Well, I'm looking for leadership, commitment, and caring. These are the core qualities that I ask that we look for in any candidate we consider for police chief. Our police chief should be a skilled leader who leads the police department with calm competence and holds all officers to the highest professional and ethical standards. Our police chief should be committed to community policing and focus on developing relationships and trust with community members. She or he should be committed to de-escalation as the first choice to reduce the need for force. Our police chief should be committed to working with mental health professionals for the safety and to compassionately assist those in mental health crisis. Our police officers and chiefs should care about and like people. Our law enforcement officers should approach everyone as a human being deserving of respect regardless of age, housing status, race, immigration status, or gender. She or he should care about the safety and well-being of all who live in, visit, or pass through Gerhart. And what about us, the citizens of Gerhart? What is our role in public safety? Well, police officers have a difficult job, and we do ask a lot of them. As a community, we can make sure we hire professionals who will serve our community well. We can support our officers with competitive salaries and benefits so that they and their families can thrive and be a part of our community. It's worth the investment. At the end of the day, whether we are the citizens that count on our police to help us or the police officer that shows up to help, we are all just people who owe each other kindness and respect. Thank you.
Well, Susan Spring, do you want to say this, or do you, I mean, it's.
Well, I would like to say that I have been here a long time. My name is Susan Stratton, 641 Third Street. I have a very, very nice memory of Lorna, who was a police officer here probably 20 years ago, 25 maybe. But I think in a small town, she had the relationship with people that was a bit softer than a lot of police chiefs have. I would like a woman to be considered for the fact that we are much more of a community of families and so forth instead of big cities. I know that does not have to be necessary, but it is something that relationships is something that.
Thank you. Okay. I believe we're going to be from this house. Just count. Terry Graff.
The thing that I like most about Jeff Bowman was the relationship with the residents. He would stop by and have coffee. He could drop into his office and he would be available and he would listen to you as long as you wanted to talk. He knew your first name. And I'd like to see a new person who's really becoming part of our community like that, where if he wants to come by and have a cup of coffee and listen to you. That's what Jeff did, and that's what I really appreciated.
Thank you. Russell, this is just a comment for the city council?
Correct.
Okay.
And also I'd like to say something. I've met Jeff a few times and always had a good relationship with him, and I want to wish him well, and hopefully we can find another strong police chief.
Thank you. I'm at a loss of what to do here. Council comments. Preston, do you have anything?
Oh, I'm here to listen to the constituents.
Rita?
I appreciate everything that everyone said. And I'd also like to see our new police chief, whoever he is, to be involved in some community volunteer work. It just always helps.
Get to know the public, yes. Dana?
Yeah, as you know, I usually talk too much, so I'm going to try not to talk too much. I'm just here to listen for the most part today.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
It's important that the new police chief take the fact that we have a beach, even though it is a state-run beach, into consideration. And the rules going down from 10th Avenue are on Gerhart property in Gerhart City. And there's speeding and driving on the other side of the beach, and all the going-ons, especially July 4th weekend, is horrendous. And I would like to see a police chief address that and find a way forward to keep a sustainable way of life in Gerhart without it turning into mayhem as it does on the 4th of July weekend on the beach.
Okay. I'm going to ask anybody else. It's on you now.
It's on me.
Well, I was asked to recap because I thought that they probably assumed I would talk more than I had to, because I usually do. And because I have a little bit of experience with this, having been in law enforcement. And in my previous law enforcement experience, I've worked in agencies that provided contract services like what some folks in here are describing. And I know the pros and cons of that. I've also lived in cities where those types of services were performed. And you need to know that we are aware of that. And we are considering all of those issues and trying to make the best decision. So we appreciate everybody coming out and sharing the information that you shared with us. Some of the things that you brought up that you're looking for, or I would say probably everything that you've brought up today is, I think it's safe to say that we already gave this. This is probably included in the list that you received from us, Mr. Troxel. Would it be fair to
Yes,
say?
there's a lot of overlap in what I heard in the last 20 minutes or so and what council has already shared, but all good info. I think everybody's on the same page.
Okay, and what I heard over and over and over again, many people mentioned compassion. They're looking for community-oriented policing, and that is absolutely our expectations also. You should know that I have very high expectations of law enforcement. And I believe we all do. And that was one of the number ones on my list is you can't come into a small community like this and not understand that you're coming into a small community like this, and especially a community like this where we have so many people that are engaged and have very strong opinions and everybody knows everybody. So we need somebody who understands that. We need somebody that going hand in hand with that is somebody who's a good communicator, which people mentioned. Number one, one of my number ones is understanding modern police work. Even though we live in a small community where a lot of things seem to pass us by, our borders are not patrolled. We can't stop crime from coming into our city. So we need, and our law enforcement officers, you need to understand that. People said they need to work with Seaside. They already do work with Seaside. They go down to Seaside calls, and vice versa. They get Classic County comes down here and backs it. They work together, and all of these communities, their law enforcement, nobody has sufficient law enforcement to handle everything in their city without a good program where they're working together. So we do need to have somebody who comes in and understands that, and we'll work with them. Strong leadership, yeah, that's a big one. Our commitment, obviously, yeah, that's a tough one here. Because what nobody has mentioned, one of the considerations, not the overriding consideration, but one of the considerations is that we need to make this financially a good decision. Whatever we decide, we need to do what's best for Gearhart. And some of the cities around us pay a lot more for their law enforcement than we pay. And what I'm happy to see a lot of people thank Jeff for his commitment here, because whether you like him or whether you don't, and I understand that that you could get a lot of opinions on that, very strong opinions on that. What he has done for us is he's given us a long time of service without dragging us into a lot of lawsuits, without, he has guided us through a lot of changes. I know he has, because I went through the same changes that he did in law enforcement. Law enforcement is, Preston and I had an interesting conversation a couple meetings ago about what happened here in Seaside in the '64 riots, when law enforcement just locked themselves in the office and said, well, we don't know what to do. And that's what happens when you have law enforcement that is not trained, doesn't understand modern law enforcement, and they're not prepared and haven't done, if this happens, then I'm going to do that type of thinking. And that is no longer acceptable within the law enforcement community, within the law enforcement industry. I hope you know that, and I hope you know that we understand that, and that we are looking for somebody who also understands that. But Jeff has done a very good job in getting us here, and he has been giving us a lot of bang for our buck, because not only has he been a police chief, he's been our 3rd patrol officer. And that is not a model of staffing that you will see in our surrounding agencies. It's a very rare model of staffing, and it's very tough. So that's also a consideration for us. And I hope you know that we're thinking about that. Other things that people brought up, obviously, we're looking for somebody who's caring, and somebody mentioned somebody who's softer. Yeah, somebody who knows how to get somebody to do what they want them to do, get them to want to do what they need them to do rather than forcing them to do. That's a goal within law enforcement. That is something that they're spending endless amounts of time training on now, because if you don't, you end up in some of the ugliness that we have seen across the nation if we don't have law enforcement officers that understand, when it's time to talk and when it's time to take care of business. But always your goal should be to try and talk and communicating and encourage them or get them to want to do what you need them to do because they want to do it. Unbiased, yeah. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. We need somebody who's unbiased, respectful, obviously, and then considering of the environment that we're working in with the rain and with the beach and with everything else. Yeah, those are all things that we've talked about too. So we do appreciate everybody coming in and sharing that with us. And we do believe it's important to have your input on this. And so feel free to email us if you have more. I mean, you might go home tonight and think of something else that you wish you had said, or something that was brought up that you're afraid to bring up in this group. Please email us. I'm happy to hear you, to listen to you as everybody here. And I do respond to my emails. If I may not always respond the way you want me to respond, but you will get a response if you send me an email. And then just so you know, our goal is to select a police chief who reflects your values and the needs of this community. And that is very important to us. So thank you for coming in.
And may I have one?
Well, it's up to,
Just one.
Oh.
Thank you very much. I think that it would be necessary for our police chief to be required to live within the city limits of Gerhart. I know all city councilors, that is a requirement. So any bond measures, any new ordinances, things like that, they are personally going to have to deal with. So if they are required to live within Gerhart city limits, I think it's important.
okay.
That I believe would have to be given a time limit. I don't know that some people can just move and buy a house in Western Gerhart. Eastern Gerhart, it's a different situation where it's a little more modest price, but I think adding a time limit or something like that could conceivably be thought of.
Can I answer this one? Can I?
Sure.
Okay,
Change what I said.
Sorry. No, I'm not going to change what you said. I'm just going to throw out there some other considerations with that. Throughout law enforcement, that is long been a discussion, a topic of discussion, because a lot of people feel that it's important for law enforcement to understand and really to have that community connection and to really have good community-oriented policing. They really need to be immersed in the community, and they need to be volunteers, and then they need to also live in the community. The problem with that is the pay. Well, that's one of the problems. One of the problems is the pay. Communities that feel very strongly about that often include incentives. We will help you purchase a house here or along those lines. I don't know that Gerhart is going to be in a position, that might be a whole nother discussion we could go into, but I don't think so. But you got to understand that what we can pay here, a lot of people think it's a lot, but it's really not. We spent a lot of time today talking about comparison studies on what we're paying our law enforcement officers from the police chief down. And we're not super competitive. And then when you're talking about the high price and the limited housing available here in Gerhart, what you might do is take our pool of officers. We might get 15 people apply, and you might say, well, none of these people, we might have people walk away, and then we end up with no police chief. Would you agree with what I just said, Mr. Troxel?
Yeah, it's, you're going to want to attract probably somebody from a medium sized to a smaller police department that wants to be a police chief and meets those wish lists, if you will, of the traits you guys would like to see. But yeah, the pay, and then I think, like you said, Counselor, the cost of housing is a big thing. So And I think you may have touched on it briefly as well, that for years and years, police officers did not want to live in the town which they worked, because if you arrest somebody on Friday or Saturday at a bar fight, you're going to run into them at Safeway on Sunday. And so you wanted to, you wanted to steer clear of that. But I think nowadays with community policing the way it is, you are, as a police chief or a police officer in a small town, you're part of the community, and you're going to run into people all the time when you're on your time off. So you're on duty all the time. So it'll be a challenge, yes, salary and housing costs, but we can talk about that and figure out a way. Like I think Mr. Mayor talked about maybe some kind of incentive, and a timeline for when they may have to be living in the city within a certain number of months of employment, that kind of thing.
And I failed to mention earlier, but I think I did, that Tim is a retired police chief. And one of the reasons that we did choose this company as well.
Candace?
This is a general question. Compared to other small communities, how many calls does our department get? I was astonished to realize that our fire department had as many calls as they did. And what percentage of the police calls are, shall we say, mental health?
I couldn't answer to that. The chief will have a police report tomorrow available, but I know on average it's 400 to 500 security checks a month they were doing with 3 officers. I don't know if they're doing that now, that
What
many.
is a security check? Somebody's doors?
I can't answer honestly. I read the report and I go, that's a lot of security checks.
Right.
But that would be an officer answering the question. I can't do that.
Okay.
But it'll be something available.
Vis-a-vis the amount we're able to pay, how taxing is the job?
Right. That's a good question. I don't have an answer right now for you. Susan?
At one time, I was told that the majority of violent crimes that our police officers responded to were domestics. And I don't know if that's any longer true. But fights in the home, that's the kind of, and I think that that's something that, being such a community that people come to have a good time on weekends, that we have to really look at somebody who handles that.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Able to diffuse the situation.
Yes.
Who are you?
I am Tina.
Tina. I'm sorry, Tina. I just don't.
I do have a last name, it's Popke, Tina
Thank
Popke. And I belong on Neocoxy. Thank you. And by the beach, so I get to see all that. But I think that, that this is a small community, and even though we're not able to offer a new police chief the money that they would get in a bigger community, we are able to offer them a quality of life that they would not get in a bigger community. They're not answering the call that a bigger community would have. And I feel that that is a very attractive way to go about looking for a new chief, is the small town, hometown, ideal life, quality of life that you get here in Gerhart. And we not give them the kind of money that they would get in a big town, but they don't get the big problems that they do in the big town either. And I just think that it's a very important position to get a small town officer.
It's a good point. BB?
I agree that it'd be nice if the police chief and their family lived in our community, but I wouldn't want it to reduce our applicant pool if that's the requirement. And in addition, most people are in 2 spouses working families, so there may be considerations for the spouse employment that they may have to be in a community where it's halfway in between their two works. So I would not want to see us limit our pool of applicants because of that desire.
Okay.
Great.
You said my point much better than I did. Thank you.
Does anyone know? Susan?
Another aspect of the idea of having a private life outside of work or being anonymous at times is one in which it's just nice to have a haven to return to after you have worked, whatever your work week happens to be. And an example would be, as someone who worked for the Seaside School District for 32 years, I remember more than once shopping at the grocery store after school and honestly running into someone on every single aisle that was a parent. And that takes a lot of work. You stop, I mean, not that you don't want to chat with these people and be a part of that social interaction, but it's very time consuming. And so that's something to consider, I think, in terms of having a requirement for someone to actually live within your home.
Okay. Is there any other comments? Wow, okay.
I think if I might just real quick.
Okay. I didn't get my hand on it, so.
Greg Bush with 1135, and I'm a federal law enforcement officer, manager, and so I work with a lot of this, and just one of the things I'm assuming that's going to be happening besides the basic training requirements is also looking at the integrity aspect, making sure you do background checks, the Giglio and Brady requirements, making sure that the person that we have is beyond reproach. We don't have to worry about the integrity of the individual, that they have the supervisory management background and experience that ideally we're going to get somebody who has experiences of at least a patrol sergeant, that they already have that leadership background and they're not going to be coming in here fresh and this is their first time, because it's harder when you're starting out, and this is a smaller community. We are trying to develop that trust and teamwork, and you've got individual officers, you don't have squads. So we want somebody that has that background. But I really want to just bring up that the integrity aspect and be able to do background checks.
Carrie, I just have a question. Once we find our new chief, are we still going to have just two, or is it our goal to ever add it back to a third?
We are looking right now to add another officer. It is an officer.
Yes.
So we are looking, I mean, we actively looking right now. We've got 4 on the books, but you know, when you look at everything, you can't always interview all 4 because of things that you find out. And so we are looking, we are still looking, and we've been actively looking since what? At least a year and a half.
Been about a year and a half, and currently we have 4 candidates. We're going through the process of setting up those interviews with the city council, and we have some prospects.
Yes. So should we expect, though, if we don't find a chief by April and Jeff retires, it will be down to 1?
No. No, we're gonna give the mayor a bat.
And a horse.
So there are some plans being worked on. We are in discussions with chiefs in both of our neighboring communities and the county. And there's also other programs called the linebacker program that I've been talking with Tim a little bit about, which provides officers, they're able to leave their police departments temporarily and come in and help with our situation. It's part of a training atmosphere as well for them.
Kind of like traveling nurses?
Kind of like traveling nurses a little bit. So now we have traveling police officers a little bit maybe, but it's actually they do that to further their career as well and to get some new experiences. So they would be qualified and they would have a certain amount of experience, of course. So we do have those options. There will be a gap between our Chief Bowman and this new chief, but we're working with ways to be able to accommodate that.
Anybody else? Sarah.
Yes, I just thought of something that I should have added. I've worked with sheriffs, and what I have found is the ones who were the easiest to work with and the most knowledgeable and well-rounded were ones who had undergraduate liberal arts degrees. And then they had criminal justice. If it is possible that there could be an applicant that fits that, I would think that would be good.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Here we
Okay.
go.
Okay, thank you very much for coming to the town hall. If you got any comment cards and you want to turn them in, please leave them at the front desk.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Christy.